Hello, and welcome to the next webinar of our series, where we introduce our audience to growing and upcoming startups, thus giving a glimpse into the booming Canadian business world. I would like to introduce Colin and Daniel, the co founders of VWatch, a revolutionary platform which has digitized the neighborhood watch. Welcome, Colin. Welcome, Daniel. What
Thank you.
makes the start? Yeah, what makes this startup unique is that it is a mobile application which can be used by users to share media and help improve safety and accountability. I personally believe that it is an epitome of a business idea which will have a greater social impact. I would like to begin our session by requesting Colin and Daniel to give a short introduction to themselves and tell us what prompted them to collaborate towards the idea of V.
I don't mind taking lead. I worked a career in sales and account management across various sectors and industries, and I decided to return back to school for business management. There was a lot of entrepreneurship, and I was fortunate enough to attend Seneca College. And from there, I had some ideas, and one of the pains that resonated with me was that there was a huge gap in the sharing of media and information following incidents because I'd been struck a couple times in my car, and I know there was people nearby that saw something. I know there was dash cams in some of those cars, and I had no way to know who they were, how to find them. So the information that I needed was sitting out there just taunting me. So I thought, well, there must be a way. There must be some way to fill this gap, and that brought the early idea of WeWatch, which then went through some validation. And early in that journey, I ran into Daniel, so he'll tell you more about that.
Yeah, I
Yeah, for
think
sure.
we would love to know more about how you guys met and how you decided to get together and start with VWatch.
Yes.
Yeah. So meeting's actually really funny. So just sort of with my background is I've always loved tech as a kid. Always playing around with tech. I ended up becoming a lawyer, so I went to University of Toronto for psychology and philosophy in undergrad, and then Osgoode Hall for law school, and worked at a big firm. Decided it wasn't for me, and I decided to start my own practice working with tech startups. And I just happened to see Colin on Facebook, and he said, "Hey, I'm looking for a co-founder. I have a pretty cool idea." And I said, why not? Let's talk to this guy. I don't even think Colin had like a proper display picture. It wasn't his face, it was something else. So I took the call and I was kind of surprised by kind of what I saw there. But Colin was a great guy. And I was like, you know what? I love tech companies and Colin seems like a great guy and I love the idea. So let's work together. So yeah, right now I run my law practice and work on WeWatch both at the same time. We gotta pay the bills before we scale up, and hopefully once we scale up, we'll be doing it. I'll be working on it full time.
Well, thank you for sharing this, Daniel. I think it's quite inspirational to see someone. While because what I've seen more with lawyers is that often people try to go down the traditional path. You being you not only went down the traditional path and started with your own practice, but you also decided to give fire to your entrepreneurial wings and decided to do something more, which I definitely believe will have a greater impact and actually help make people's lives easier, especially people who are going through something traumatic like an accident or some other incident. Okay, now I would like to delve into the pragmatic aspects of VWatch. I understand that it is a mobile application which is similar to a crowdsourcing platform. On this app, a person who happens to meet with an incident can approach passers-by through this platform to provide corroborative evidence. Can you please elucidate more on this and give more clarity as to how this application works and how people will actually get to use it?
Absolutely. So let's say I'm the victim of a robbery or some incident. I log the incident on the WeWatch app, and it pings nearby users with the fact that there was an incident that occurred. If they saw, heard, or capture something useful on any of their devices, they simply upload it to the app, and that gets consolidated in a simple report that I have access to as the victim in that incident. So it is crowdsourcing, and it's set to provide a streamlined channel to access any relevant information to help me find justice and recourse following the incident.
And okay, so this is quite interesting. And now this brings me to the next question, that considering that using the application VWatch would include sharing of video recordings of an incident on an anonymized platform, what privacy and data related concerns would you think would arise from the app? Like, has your team ever, I'm sure your team must have addressed a lot of them. And on those lines, could you please give more clarity on how you have gone about with it?
Sure. So it helps being a lawyer here because I kind of understand what we need to do and what the requirements are. So kind of step number one is we're making sure it's actually anonymous so people aren't accidentally kind of revealing their identities. What's really great about kind of social media platforms is if you post a picture that's publicly available for people to see, it's kind of implied that, hey, you have permission to see this and kind of it's out there for the public. So our app's similar in that way where you're anonymous, but if you're uploading a picture or video, you're kind of implicitly consenting to, for other people to see it. Obviously, our terms and conditions are also going to cover that, but it's kind of similar to the same concerns of just like a general social media platform, except you're actually anonymous. Whereas, you can kind of be anonymous on other platforms if you make fake accounts and things like that. But here we're trying to just inspire people to report things they normally wouldn't. And anonymity is a big part of that because there's a lot of problems and just extra work you have to do. If you have to go find someone, you're in a car, people have to pull over, you have to talk to them. How do they actually send you the dash cam footage? They got to pull the footage off the device there. With the app, it's super easy to do and it's all anonymous. You just get the information you need without all the hassle.
Yeah, so I think that's quite a helpful thing, which will ensure that people's privacy is also protected and they're able to get help as well. So this brings on to my next question, that on numerous occasions, we see that images and videos can be edited and posted on various platforms. Considering that the content on VWatch may actually be used as evidence in a court of law, what safeguards do you have in place to ensure that the evidence which is uploaded is reliable and can actually be used to give a judgment maybe by a court in the future?
Happy to answer that too. In our new world of deep fakes and AI, we're running to a lot of those same issues of it's very hard to verify if videos are actually real or not. So this is something everyone's dealing with, Facebook, all the social media platforms. And it's problematic, right? Because if somebody's going to commit fraud and change something, it's very difficult to detect. So at the end of the day, you get evidence from someone and maybe it's fake. Well, it kind of goes to the court system and they have to use the same rules of evidence to determine, okay, is this a credible video? Are there details in this video that are contradicted by other people? And, there's also concerns in terms of people anonymously posting things. So an anonymous kind of eyewitness report has very little weight for the courts, whereas a video is kind of more powerful because the video is less related to who submitted it. But I think we're going to see changes in the law coming up where it's actually more important that we trust the person who uploaded the video because there's so much room for changing videos and things like that. Now, once we start getting the ball rolling, we start building more features, is it possible for AI to look at a video to see if it's been edited? Potentially, we'll be looking at those technologies. But it's a hard issue that I think our entire society doesn't really know how to deal with at this point.
Yes,
I can elaborate. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I can elaborate briefly, and this is, when people are thinking of, WeWatch as a new idea, we're not entirely challenging the status quo. We're complementing the existing systems, people, and processes that exist in this scope of service that we're targeting. So, in the court system, to elaborate on Daniel's point, there's a level of corroboration that's needed from a witness, right, to accompany a piece of evidence, usually, because the evidence is usually contextual and sometimes limited in what it provides. So with that being said, the augmentation that we're delivering is access to more potential witnesses that can be contacted and asked to come forward and participate in that process.
Well, yes, definitely. I think when you're providing evidence in a court of law, definitely every little corroborative piece of evidence helps, and this will be an amazing way to get more of that and strengthen a case. So it will definitely have a lot of real world impact, and I believe that your concept is something which will be applicable on a global basis, because the courts are there everywhere and everybody needs evidence of incidents. So now I will go more towards entrepreneurship. So now I will go more towards its usage with the government. So do you believe that the technology created by you may be useful to the Canadian government and other governments as you expand overseas? What do you think will be the uses, and how do you plan to introduce this concept?
Well, I could speak to some of the uses. The intelligence gathering capability of WeWatch, as we watch out for each other, is incredible. One, we're collecting data on incidents that are not currently being reported by conventional means. This means that the data and analytics that exist to public and private sectors, for the most part, is out of date. It's not in real time, and it doesn't account for the array of incidents that are occurring that should be data points on their analytics set, which means that one, the data is probably skewed. To what degree, we're not exactly sure of yet, because we have to catalog and compare against what the status quo is in terms of the data that's gathered already. As far as government implications and applications, we're looking to employ proactive incident response by leveraging some of this data to help leverage and solicit new or enhanced initiatives, projects, and programs by either communities, municipalities, provincial, federal levels of government, and how we're introducing this is by going directly to the communities themselves. So our clients at this moment are BIAs, business improvement areas. These are subsets of municipalities that operate relatively autonomously. And they have a vested interest in the appeal, safety, and cohesion of their communities, which means that when it comes to responding and understanding what incidents are occurring in their neighborhoods, WeWatch gives them that tool set to deliver that ground level impact, then the data that they need to get the appropriate response from their respective municipalities. And then obviously the data can be compoundedly more useful as it essentially grows.
Well, yes, definitely, and it will have a major impact, as you have explained, because as the data will keep growing, it will become more useful, and definitely for intelligence gathering for any government is quite important. And considering its implications, it will definitely have a major help for governments, both in Canada and as you expand overseas governments as well.
Yeah, I didn't miss anything, Daniel, did I?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main use for governments is going to be our platform is going to let governments kind of talk to the average person, and if the government needs some help, so it's police force that, we've talked to a few police forces here in Ontario, and when there's an incident, police officers have to go off into the community to find evidence. Well, our app can potentially, the police can just use the app and then just ask a bunch of people, hey, did you see anything? Feel free to upload something anonymously. And we can kind of be that gateway between the public and the government in terms of community and public safety. So, we have a trusted platform. Anonymity is our first priority here. And if the government wants to talk to people in a modern and kind of digitally enabled way, our platform is going to be able to do that for them. Yeah,
Definitely, I think it will be have a major impact on the real world implications, and it will help governments collaborate more and build a more trust worthy and community building also, because that is quite important, especially in today's time where we sometimes we hear so much things happening all over, and building a closer knit community will definitely help people have a more holistic growth, and doing that through tech is definitely something quite amazing. So now this brings me to my next question about the general implication of crowdsourcing platforms. So do you think crowdsourcing platforms will have major real world applications? Do you think the booming Canadian business world will bring forth more such amazing innovative startups, which will help strengthen the concept of building together as a community as a whole?
Well, yes, I would say yes to all of your questions. Yes, it will have major real world applications, and I feel that crowdsourcing or the like, which is, if I was to be so brave as to say decentralization, is a core driver of the future of business and economy. And we've seen that with the rise of cryptocurrencies. We've seen that with a lot of things, even energy. In fact, one of the catalyzing things that I saw or heard when I was in the early stages of developing this business was a talk that was produced by Vice, and it featured an economic theorist, Jeremy Rifkin. And his talk just blew my mind. I suggest if you're going to watch it, do it in 2 or 3 sittings, because it's just it's an incredibly dark and dense and super insightful. But one of the main points was how the future of economy is in decentralization, contributing to the energy grid. Companies are no longer obtaining advantage by this top-down pyramid. Well, so I'm like, well, surveillance has always generally been top-down, and it doesn't make people feel good, right? Having that big brother watching over everything in the surveillance complex, it's a daunting idea for a lot of people. So what I did is I'm like, okay, well, how do we decentralize it? How do we flip that pyramid on its head and take that top level as the ground level users, develop something that is in good faith to their lives as a benefit, something that they will use and be empowered by to make their lives easier, and solve a lot of these problems that myself and I'm sure most or all of us face on a regular basis. And so we do that. We enable the ground level network as an opt-in, express consent based platform, and allow that data and intelligence to trickle down to other stakeholders who can use it.
Yeah, so I love the idea of working with large groups of people, and kind of any task you're working on, not every single person is relevant for that. So, maybe you have 200 or 300 people in your network, but there's 30 million plus people in Canada. So just being able to get the right relevant people at the right time you need, I think is super powerful for our app, but just for any app in particular. So crowdsourcing is great. Crowdfunding is becoming more popular, and the Ontario Securities Commission has implemented crowdfunding rules, and we have platforms for that now. So yeah, I think the future is more decentralized, and the industrial revolution was kind of a change from a decentralized economy into more centralized factories and scaling in centralized locations. But now you can scale without centralization, and that has huge implications for everybody.
Oh, well, definitely. I think decentralized way of doing things is the way to go. And especially as you have mentioned, the development of the cryptocurrency and other ways of growing together as a community will definitely have a major real world implication and help creating a more immersive way of living. So now my next question is more towards entrepreneurship in general. So from your journey as an entrepreneur, do you have any suggestions and ideas which you would like to share with our viewers about developing innovative business ideas from events you have faced in real life? Like Colin previously mentioned that he had faced some incidents because of which he got the idea of developing WeWatch. So something more which you can talk about to help inspire people facing things in their regular lives and which might be helpful to them for developing a good business idea.
Yeah, I love this discussion so much. I'm very fortunate and grateful to have partaken in different incubators, masterminds, accelerators, and I have to plug a couple. You have Tree Frog, Wise Space, Seneca. Haltech is out in Halton region. Goodness, I know there's more, and it's been an amazing experience, and I wouldn't trade it for any other journey that I've had. And this being said, it's incredibly difficult. So advice I'd have for anyone at any stage in as an entrepreneur starting a business, especially with an idea that might challenge the status quo, is focus on pain. Listen to what people have to say. The thing is, in our community, we have people of all different aptitudes, age groups, experience, and any one of these people can likely say something that is very valuable. And the people I've seen who, to put it politely, haven't seen the success as some other entrepreneurs are the people that don't listen. They don't adapt. They don't pivot towards how to better address the pain. And the pain is whatever your customers are feeling, that they're willing to pay for a solution for. And with this, it's incredibly powerful. With the networks, the community of entrepreneurs, the best advice I can give is sometimes just shut up and listen. Don't argue with advice. Put it in your pocket and wait for a moment when you can put it into use. And as far as tenacity goes, sometimes I might need to give up on an idea if it's objectively not going to work. But I only get to that point after I've tapped every resource. And if I'm getting green flags from people and I'm saying, well, this might be a different direction, or maybe I can do this differently. If I've exhausted all those things, then maybe it's time to move on to the next idea. Anyway, that was just a bundle of words, but it's just an important subject to me, and I'm sure Daniel can share because he's really into the entrepreneurship network.
Yeah, it's funny because as a kid, I was never really exposed to entrepreneurship. Like you hear about, Mark Zuckerberg drops out of college to start his own startup, but it never really seemed kind of feasible or a real thing for me. And then funny enough, I take the more traditional route to become a lawyer, and then I start my own law practice. And that kind of just showed me, you know, anyone can really be an entrepreneur as long as they put the effort in. And, as I found out 20 years ago, lawyers, doctors, accountants, it was far more lucrative back in the day. But now we have inflation and societal changes, and housing prices are going crazy. So people who aren't in those professions, who are more in a general corporate role, or even people who are in these professions, they're going to find that the life path that worked for people 20, 30 years ago isn't necessarily going to help you hit your financial goals. And I may even dare say entrepreneurship and starting a business and making it successful might be the only way to kind of achieve loftier financial goals, and kind of not, working paycheck to paycheck. So I echo what Colin said. It's hard. You're going to need a lot of work. You're probably not going to be able to do it yourself. But if you can stick with it, there's huge returns, not just from a financial perspective with having a successful business, but also like having an impact in the world. It's more interesting work because you're solving problems, you're figuring out how things work and how you can make things better. And you kind of build an asset that you own, and that is going to, you put work in, and then that kind of stays around and compounds. Whereas working at a job, you kind of put your time in, and then you have to put the same time in again and again and again, and you don't really build equity. So I kind of see entrepreneurship as almost a requirement for anyone who's ambitious in today's world. And honestly, it pays to solve people's problems, and you feel really good when you do it. So I recommend it to people, but it is hard. It's going to take you 5 years before you build a successful business if you've never done it before. And if you're willing to take that sacrifice, I think it's worth it.
Well, definitely. I think what both of you have said is quite inspirational and actually quite eye-opening. That it is often said that it is only through business that you can actually reach the lofty financial goals you may have in life. And well, it is the risk to reward ratio. And definitely one should, just like you have done, Daniel, one should, while working, always strive to do something better and different. I believe even if you have a good entrepreneur real spirit, even while you're working on a job, you can look at various aspects and see how to make it better. Like you can take any simple thing which you have in life. Maybe if you're working with a law firm, you see a process which is quite lengthy and tough to manage, and you can actually optimize it. That can also be a good business idea. And definitely what you have said is really, really useful and actually quite relevant in today's time. So my final question is directed towards Daniel, and I would love for Colin to weigh in on this. So Daniel, considering your experience as a tech lawyer and tech entrepreneur, what common problems do you see often innovators facing while beginning the process of launching their startup? Like, do you have any suggestions based on your experience? Colin, I would really love for you to weigh in on this as well.
Yeah, so it's the initial part is really, really hard, and there's way less support than you'd think in terms of funding grants and fundraising from investors. So unless you have a personal network of wealthy individuals that are willing to take a risk on you, you have to build the business quite a bit before those resources are going to be available. So a lot of grants from the government require 2 years of revenue. So if you build something for 2 years and you'll have revenue, you're still not even ready for it. You have to have 2 years of revenue. And investors, a lot of investors for tech startups I see, they want to see 10 grand a month reoccurring revenue. So every month you're making 10 grand from people you've already sold to. And some investors we've talked to, they said 30 grand a month before they're willing to write you a check for not even a huge amount. So if you're a first time founder, it is hard, and there's going to be very little resources available to you. So you're going to have to make that work, right? If you have to work at a job and save up, or you have to work a job and build the business at the same time, that's what you're going to have to do. And if you're not blessed to kind of have connections that come with capital, that's probably the biggest thing I see with early stage people. It's underestimating how long and how much money it's going to take, and assuming there's going to be support. Now, a lot of entrepreneurs are willing to help you with their time, and explain things to you and maybe teach you like a discrete thing. So entrepreneurs are generally pretty good like that, but they'll teach you how to do it, but then you have to do it. So keep that in mind and have that cash reserve, and you'll be okay.
Definitely, that's quite. Sorry, please, Colin, please go on.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, working with Daniel, we have really cool, I would say complementary contrasts, if you will, because my lessons learned or my advice to problems facing innovation in entrepreneurship is really not knowing what the hell you're doing. Or if I speak from my experience. But what I mean by this is scope creep. Sometimes you start off with a great idea, a great concept, and you get lost in the what ifs. You're like, well, oh my God, we can do this. Oh my God, we can do that. And I talk to this person and they want to see this. And I'm like, oh, well, should I be doing that? And so, trust me, when I started off with WeWatch, just before I'd met Daniel, this was like it started off as this information sharing, and I'm like, okay, well, we could build this and this and this, and these areas might be profitable. And I saw, okay, well, how much is it going to cost to build? But if I didn't refine and validate the core pain and the core solution and refine it down to something that could be built and executed, then I would be done, absolutely finished. And so my core piece of advice is, validate the hell out of your concept. Make sure that people, your end users, your customers, are willing to pay for it and it solves a pain. And then keep it simple, do that well. If there's not an automation, if there's not this or that, who cares? If you're solving the pain, you can throw in some stopgaps to, so at least you generate revenue. And it's the revenue generating to work off of Daniel's point that is essential for any progress, for staffing, for investors, for any progress whatsoever. So one of the biggest lessons I learned through one of my mentors is take the shortest possible path to revenue generation as possible. But that only comes when there's a finite, defined, easy to define and pitch solution.
Well, definitely, I believe what you have said is actually quite relevant because for any business, you have to be quite pragmatic. If you're not solving a problem, why will anybody want to give you any money? And it is really important to actually try and see its real world implication. You may actually have maybe do a survey or even try to have like a beta version. A lot of people do beta testing, and that might be quite helpful for before launching as a startup. And definitely what you have said is extremely relevant, Colin. And I will really like any viewer or any innovator who is planning to start their own startup to actually listen to this and learn from this, because it is something which will actually help you grow and save a lot of money as well. Well, with this, I would like to thank you, Colin and Daniel, for taking out your valuable time for our webinar today. I'm sure we will have numerous opportunities to collaborate with you in the future sessions and get enlightened by you and also learn about the progress you're making with WeWatch. Okay, so thank you so much for taking out your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. It's awesome.
No problem.
Thank you.